This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz. Very excited to be speaking with Scott Morris and Andrew Buckland about A Complete Unknown. How are you both doing today?
Very good.
Great, yeah.
Great.
Ready to be talking about this film.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to be talking about it also because in terms of all the expected Oscar contenders, I think this was the last one to really come out to the world. And from my understanding, that's because it's very recently finished. Can you talk me through the timeline a little bit, especially for you guys?
Yes, that
Timeline.
is correct. Very recently finished.
The paint just dried on this. Yeah, timeline. Uh, well,
You wrapped shooting in June, was it?
June, I
Yeah, I
think
think
so.
June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from June till November. Um, like, was that 5 months? Um, Something like that.
Yeah. But I mean, it didn't feel rushed. Jim knew what he wanted. He got, he shot amazing footage and it was my first time working with Jim. Drew has a relationship working with him on many films. Um, but the process went very smoothly. We were able to cut during dailies is something that Jim always does. He knew for me doing this intensely, but basically he would shoot and then after the day of shoot, he'd be working with us on scenes, virtually in every cast. He's in Jersey, we're in LA, and we'd be able to move through it. By the time he got back in LA, we watched the film, a few days later, and it was clear to us, kind of watching it. Jim had already done passing all the scenes. He said, "Okay, we knew what kind of the approach they wanted to take to kind of get into shape and move through that editorial process that we do."
Yeah, that allowed us to show the film pretty quickly after they wrapped. So usually, you would have a longer time period. They would leave you alone for a few weeks, to finish up. But because we were cutting with Jim virtually, it was like 4 days basically after he got back. Yeah.
Well, in talking to Faden earlier, I mentioned that a lot of this film could feel like a concert that you're attending, but instead it feels like you're sort of up close and personal with these people. What kind of work did you guys do in terms of the footage you received and trying to focus in on that very personal experience?
Well, I think the mandate was this is Bob's film. So finding the Bob's point of view within these scenes and was key to sort of construct them. And so that, on the surface, that was, a way to approach them. And also, in the sort of the nuances of it, the musical element of this film, was definitely an aspect of Bob that kind of permeated through the whole scenes anyways. So, um, it was trying to not lose track of Bob as our sort of, it's an obvious thing to say, but you can get sort of like, wrapped up in other characters sometimes, but it's finding that balance between Bob and bringing the other characters into the scene and having them react and having them sort of create this like way of us, understanding Bob's world.
Was there anything that was particularly challenging to cut together or that required a lot of decision making in terms of different possible directions things could have gone?
Well, there's certainly the climactic sequence that Drew can share.
Yes. That what took us, that was the we sort of joke about it being the Le Mans of Bob Dylan. That it was, in terms of scope and the culmination of the music and it was quite it was a lot of elements and a lot of decisions had to be made because the way they shot the film was this particular scene was they shot it the three songs consecutively. So Timmy would perform the three rock songs uninterrupted. And so we would have multiple takes. So the challenge was to sort of find the beats within these songs that allowed us to sort of honor these the drama that's happening off camera, off stage, um, and how the audience is reacting. So all that stuff needed to be that was the one that we spent the most time.
Are you happy with how it came out? I assume yes, but
I am,
are
yes,
there things
very
Yeah,
you would
much.
are
yeah.
there things you would do differently if you could?
No,
No,
I don't
hoping
have no. There's
you
nothing
leave
like
it out there.
no
Yeah,
regrets
no regrets. Yeah.
on these scenes.
Given that a lot of these, big moments are in fact from history, was there any attempt to sort of really match what happened, the look of what happened, and how did that affect your work, or was that already sort of done by the time it got to you?
I say I know with Timothy's performance, it was about crafting kind of the spirit of Bob Dylan, and it was very authentic to that idea rather than doing like a direct mimicry of who he was. He watched all, I know he prepared for the role by watching, that footage, but he kind of made it his own, and when you watch the film, you see musically and also just his acting, he's sort of riding this really nice line. And for me, like I was certainly reacting off of that editorially as well of like we want to be as faithful as we can to the spirit, but not maybe like a great example is the Cuban Missile Crisis sequence, which I love putting together with all the sound design elements and working with all the archival. So we're folding like we're bringing that kind of crisis that it was a few days or weeks months but we folded into this kind of one night and it's kind of poetic um it's all the feelings, anxieties that were happening at that time just boil down to this moment where it's like this incredible sequence that starts with, all this anxiety building and it ends with, Bob's reaction to that. Now he's able to kind of give people a moment of maybe calmness or peace within it when at the end of the eye of a storm. And then Joan, of course, they're kind of converging on each other, and we're able to see how the music affects the people, how it affects Joan. Um, but that was all kind of as far as talking about kind of being faithful to history. It's like I think it is faithful, but it's not literal. But that's cinema, right?
It's true. And what was your collaboration like with the sound department? Since I imagine that's very key here.
Yes, they were with us very early on. Don Sylvester was with us really early, and as well as Ted Kaplan, our music editor, and I mean they were key in helping us craft the sort of the sonic soundscape that you hear. And a lot of the, as you know, a lot of the songs were sung live, so which is fantastic, but also adds technical challenges in cutting. And um, uh, Ted Kaplan was able to sort of help us with because Scott and we did the initial music edit because we had to because we're cutting the film together. So there were moments where we had to, and sometimes we had to sort of expand or contract a song, and we had to make the initial edit and then review with Jim, and then Jim once we went through that process, then Ted was able to sort of help us smooth that out and take it the next step further.
And as you mentioned before, Andrew, you've worked a lot before with James Mangold, whereas Scott, this is your first time. How was this one for you, Andrew? Different than previous collaborations? And Scott, how did this live up to your expectations based on the work of his that you've seen?
Well, it's wonderful to be able to work with the director you have a relationship with and you have a kind of a shorthand with, and especially because of our this process of making this movie, it was essential basically that we had that relationship. And Scott, I know he came on, but he just he, it just flowed right into our process, and he fit in just naturally. It was just a natural fit, and it was all sort of we were all kind of thankfully we were all Scott and I were all in agreement in our approach to cutting this movie together. And then Jim, this movie, as opposed to like something like Indiana Jones and Ford Ferrari, this is, it's smaller in scope, but not really. And it just allowed me the opportunity to work on a music film, which is my first. So that was very exciting.
And I was so grateful to be, to get the call and be brought into this team. Um, I mean, they're such like a well-oiled machine. They've worked together for so long that they all have a shorthand. Creative players involved. In the between Ted Kaplan and Don Svester, and I mean everyone. Paul Massey. When we got to the mixing, Dave Gianmarco, sound team. Everybody. They get Jim's vision. They know his vision. And I got you know Jim called me, and right away I was just so impressed with. He's one of those people when he speaks, he's so intelligent, he's so interesting. He's a filmmaker who kind of excites me because he's interested in human behavior and very deeply human stories. All of his films have that, despite the genre. They're always interested in the characters, and that ran true in the editing room. Like that was Jim's philosophical kind of like he was always interested in getting into these characters' minds and their souls. So that excites me as a collaborator, and so, yeah, I mean, Jim definitely, lived up to expectations, if not more, and he was so much fun. That's what Jim is, he's cracking jokes all the time. And same with Andrew and the team, it's just this when you walk into that office, it's a home of all these people who work together who have like a family and a camaraderie. And it's a really great space and, led by Jim and Andrew, who kind of create a space that's very warm and fun way to and it keeps us all light and creative. It's a very free environment, where we can pitch ideas and try things and bounce ideas off of each other. So very grateful to be a part of the team.
That's great. Well, you mentioned Andrew, this is your first music film. Do you think that it's an inherently different experience editing a music film, or just a different kind of focus?
It's a different focus. It is drama, and that's what Jim emphasizes anyways, even within a musical scene. It's finding the drama within those scenes. And um it's the same approach. It's just this one, just you have to be aware of the music.
Is there any genre that either of you find to be most challenging, just in terms of, approach and really being able to pull something off for the audience?
I don't think it's a genre thing. It's more,
Yeah.
maybe the sequences themselves, or if the film has kind of complex sequences, it pushes you to kind of do your best work. But no, I mean, genre is it's just a different kind of lens of viewing a story.
Well,
Well said. Well said, Scott. Yeah, I agree with that.
Great.
since this is awards buzz, I'm always curious to people who I'm talking to. What have you seen recently that's really impressed you? Film, performance, show, etc. But for you guys, I'm especially since you pay attention much more than the rest of us to the editing. What film has really stuck with you in terms of how it was put together and assembled for the screen?
There's been so many great films this year. I mean, I could list many.
I'll take multiple answers. That's fine. Multiple
Yeah,
answers, okay.
I mean, and Nora was incredibly well cut. Queer, Luca Guadagnino's latest film, Challengers is the other film he came out with this year. Um, God, I just saw A Real Pain, and that was brilliantly crafted. There's so many films.
Yeah, I'm at a disadvantage. I'm working. I'm currently working, and time is a challenge for me to watch movies. But I was able to see A Real Pain, and I really, really appreciated that movie. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, and I have to mention Dune, of course. Dune 2, cut by Joe Walker. Oh my God, what a masterpiece.
Oh yeah. Oh, that yes, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a technical feat, and it's pretty remarkable. Yeah.
Can you share your next project, either of you, what you're working on right now?
Um, no, not really. Sorry.
Well, let me ask it a different way. Is there anything, any genre or just type of medium that you haven't tried before that you really would like to approach sometime in the future?
I think a thriller. I would love to dive into a thriller. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love doing I've done before, science fiction and I love drama and I love period pieces and kind of we just keep up to working in those.
I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, now we're talking about genre. I mean, I'd love to explore, as many genres as I can. I would love to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to seeing what you guys next. Thank you so much for taking some time today.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.